She's just texting her.
Oh, that's right.
I'm here.
Okay.
I had to get her to send me something. There we go. Is it time? No, we got a couple of minutes.
You use the V, yeah. V for Virginia, though.
Wrong color.
I had a hard time getting back in again, Claudia. And even Kathy had a hard time on my computer getting it going.
I rely on my son-in-law.
So you-
I think he's gotten me straight. He's got me straight. So I think I can do it on my own from here on out, but still nice to have the young ones around.
Well, I'm really proud of myself because I'm not a computer guru. And besides the storm the other day, I mean, I've been doing along pretty good there.
That was a storm.
Yes.
Did it rain at that? I mean, did it leak in the elementary school? I mean, it poured. It didn't pour long, but it poured in our area.
Yeah, when it did, it poured.
Yeah.
We had a lot of leaves down and limbs down.
So you had to go out and do a little work there?
Yeah. Night before last. Yeah. It did. It rained and lightning. We lost electricity for a little while. Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter was down at her place. She was saying the thunder even sound different now. It sounds like explosions almost. Not like normal thunder.
Steve, you let me know when you think it's good for me to start again.
Mrs. Socek,
Yes.
I've emailed the board members the financials.
Okay.
I have everyone in. I'm ready to start the recording and get us live on YouTube. So I'm good to go whenever.
Okay. Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion to go out of closed session.
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? All in favor?
All right.
Pursuant to the Code of Virginia, the board discussed personnel matters, student matters, and legal matters during closed session. Matters discussed in closed session have been added to the consent agenda, and other parts of the agenda as action and information items. Will members of the board certify that only lawful matters were discussed in closed session? Please answer via roll call.
Ms. Socek,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Harrow,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Goforth,
Yes, ma'am.
and Dr. Shores.
Yes.
All right. The Middlesex County School Board meeting for June 8th, 2020 is now in session. Due to the state of emergency declaration announced by Governor Northam in order to curb the spread of the COVID-19 virus, the Middlesex County Board of Supervisors on March 31st, 2020 passed an ordinance which, among other things, states that the infectious nature of COVID-19 makes it unsafe to assemble in one location members of the public and/or for a quorum for public bodies, including the Board of Supervisors, the school board, and other entities, making it difficult or impossible for public entities to conduct meetings in accordance with normal practices and procedures. In accordance with Section 15.2-1413 of the Code of Virginia, 1950, as amended, notwithstanding any contrary provision of law, general or special, the following emergency procedures are adopted to ensure continuity of government during the pendency of the emergency and disaster created by COVID-19. Section B, meetings of public entities may be held electronically through real-time electronic communication means without a quorum of members physically present in a single location, provided that notice of such meetings is still given in accordance with applicable laws. Acting under the jurisdiction of Middlesex County Board of Supervisors, this meeting will be conducted in compliance with the ordinance. All right, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'm the only one that doesn't have a picture.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is Mrs. Ruark still around? Maybe she could help Richard with his picture.
I would like my picture on the screen, please.
I think
Should have
Mrs.
just gotten a
Murray is on
prompt.
her way.
Dr. Shores, you should have just gotten a prompt to start your video.
Oh. All right, very good. Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Dr. Gretz, we have some recognitions.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, and board members. We've got several recognitions to do today, and as you can see, we're joined by lots of exceptional people who have set some time aside to be with us today. So the first group of people, really, Dr. Seitz is going to do the recognitions, but I just want to say words about this. Each year, we have an opportunity to recognize people who are retiring from their work with our schools. Typically, we do it with a nice dinner reception, and obviously, we're not able to do that given the current condition of things this year. But we did want to take a few moments and recognize this year's retirees. We certainly regret that we can't do it in person. We do have beautiful plaques, that we'll be presenting to honor these individuals' work. But again, we wish we could all be together in person as we have in past years. Today, we're honoring 9 retirees who collectively have given over 250 years of service to the students, staff, families, and schools of Middlesex County. And before Dr. Seitz says a few words about these wonderful people, let me just say to our retirees, thank you. It's been a privilege to work with you in your various capacities. I've learned a great deal from you, and I wish you the absolute best in your next chapter. So thank you for all that you've done for us and for me personally. And with that, I will hand it over to Dr. Seitz.
Thank you, Dr. Gretz. I will echo what Dr. Gretz has already shared, is that what we have learned from those I'm getting ready to go through here, whether it was in the classroom or on the bus and food service maintenance, As I looked through the list, I'd shared with Dr. Gretz that either in this role or a principal role or a teaching role, I've worked with everybody on here. So I'm excited to spend a few minutes just kind of going over very briefly their careers. I probably could spend the rest of the day talking about everybody on here, but I know we don't all want to be tied to a Zoom meeting all day. So I will start first with our teachers. We have 5 teachers retiring. 3 of those teachers are currently or have just finished up their last day last week at Middlesex Elementary. I'll go in alphabetical order here. And that is Kim Aliff, who finishes 30 years in Middlesex County Public Schools. So she's been our Kids First teacher with 3-year-olds prior to that. I know she taught 4th grade. I can't remember if there were other grades. I didn't go that deep into files to look at that. What I can share, what I learned from Kim, and that's when I first started working with her. She started at Rappahannock Central Elementary, which is where I met her, and then we all moved to MES. And her compassion and caring for students was evident in the first conversation to the last conversation that you have with Kim. And I think I would argue that there has probably been no child that's come through her classroom that hasn't learned to love school. Now, they may have forgotten that love sometime later on down the line, but I know when they left Kim's classroom, they loved her and they loved where they were and what they learned. Next, we have, Paula Harcum. Paula, I also met, so she's finishing 30 years with Middlesex County Public Schools, and I met her also at Rappahannock Central Elementary, and then also moved with her to the elementary school. And it was very clear that Paula's love for reading just shone in conversations and then the classroom. The first time I spent any time with Paula was attending a reading conference in Virginia Beach. It was my first year teaching, and so it was probably, I guess, her 11th year teaching. And everything she learned in all of the breakout sessions we went into, she just took it and ran with it and was ready to implement any strategy. I, again, was first year teacher and was still trying to wrap my head around what I was doing the next day when I got into the classroom. But Paula took it and ran with it. We trained together on the Wilson reading system and had many conversations over, again, her love for teaching children reading. So whether she was Title I teacher and pulling children for that in small group, or whether she was providing that small group instruction in the classroom, you could see that. She never hesitated to invite me in when I got into this position and moved around MES. She never hesitated to invite me into her classroom to share some time with her kids or read with her kids. And then also at Middlesex Elementary is Wendy Page Olivis. She is finishing her 32 years, all of which have been in Middlesex, and she started at Wilton Elementary, which is now where the YMCA is currently held. And Wendy and I were able to teach together in 3rd grade. And just last week when she was turning in her paperwork, we laughed and joked about some of our shenanigans when we were on the 3rd grade team together. But Wendy was always forward thinking, and she would take on a challenge and she would run with it. We were on the same team when we were online testing for SOLs was introduced to 3rd graders. And I was passionately against it. But Wendy said, nope, we can take this. We've got it. Our kids will do great. And so she prepared them, not just for the content they were having to test on, but learning how to do that in an online setting. And I remember when her students, for some reason, her class was the first group to receive their set of scores on that first test, and they had blown it out of the water. And that was due to Wendy taking that on. We had to take it on, but Wendy took it on with a goal and a mindset of her kids were going to do well, and she was going to teach them how to do that. So she says goodbye to us at MES. At St. Clair Walker, we have Terry Rainier, who is finishing her 43rd year of teaching. I wish I could say that I first met Terry when I was a student and she was a teacher at the high school, but I didn't have the opportunity to take her class. So we first connected when she taught both of my children, who are adults now. She taught them both at St. Clair Walker. And then of course, Terry and I worked together when I was the principal there. And whenever we had a family that would want to come and kind of interview us as a school and take a look around St. Clair Walker, Terry's class was where I would take them. She doesn't know that because sometimes I did it in the summertime too, because it was beautifully decorated with anything that would excite a child about coming to school. So once they got in there, Terry was able to continue that child's excitement. And she just had a unique way of setting high expectations for her children and then holding them accountable. And the students that have moved through her classrooms, I know she's taught 8th grade and 6th grade since she's been at St. Clair Walker, but as they moved through, they didn't want to disappoint her, and they learned that they didn't want to disappoint themselves. So they took that enthusiasm and excitement that she had, and they raised themselves up to hold on to those expectations that she set for them. And then lastly, at the high school, who's finishing at the high school is Jeannie Duke. She has served a few roles here in our county. Since I'm sharing how I met people, I first met Jeannie 41 years ago when we were both 7th graders and new to Middlesex County, and we were the new girls starting 7th grade at the old St. Clair Walker, which is where I sit today. And then we were fortunately able to reconnect after she started her teaching career in Gloucester, and then she's joining us now. I got to start this little bit of piece over again. Dee, just for you, I've shared how I've met everybody, our 5 teachers who are retiring. And I shared that Jeannie, you and I met 41 years ago when we were the new 7th grade girls at St. Clair Walker, which is where we are now. So as I said, we connected after she started her career in Gloucester. She came to Middlesex to teach, which was exciting because we were on the 3rd grade team together. As I shared, Wendy and I taught on the 3rd grade team together. So I learned, we took on a co-teaching responsibility and just loved it. If I didn't like to teach it, she liked to teach it. So we were a dynamic duo in that respect. And then Jeannie fortunately saw that she could be a great administrator. And so I was sad to see her leave the classroom, but fortunate for many more kids when she took on the role as assistant principal at MES and then principal at MES. And so then as I moved up, we got to be principals together. She moved on to the high school because she was needed there. There were some, we needed to have some changes there, and we needed to have some positive movement forward. And Jeannie was able to bring that. So we shared time in classroom and time as administrators. So I would say over the years that we've worked together, we have shared laughs and we have shared tears. But again, all of our teachers here have just brought so much to our students and a love for what they've done to our students. And as I said, I've learned so much from each of the teachers that I've shared with you today. So I am excited for them to retire, all of you to retire, but I will also miss having you here in our system. I'll move on to what I think is the most difficult position in education, and that is our bus drivers. And Arlene Gray leaves us with 47 years and Kathy Kirkland with 32 years. I just cannot imagine holding those positions for all of those years. I could not do it. My grandmother retired as a bus driver after 31 years. And I tell people she was tough as nails. And that's when I think of that, you have to have that mentality. You have to have that work ethic. Mrs. Gray didn't often have to reach out to us for assistance, but when she did, it was because we needed to come together and help her with someone she had on the bus that even though she had tried every strategy she had up her sleeves, and she had many strategies, she sometimes had to bring us all together so that we could help with that. Again, how she did this for 47 years, I have no idea. I remember having a conversation with Kathy one time she took the time when she had gotten to the school in the morning and it wasn't time to release the kids yet. That's what she used to connect with kids. And she could have a conversation with them about something that was going on at home that she knew was bothering them, or maybe it was just something that was going on between some students that she had on her bus. And so she, tough as nails also, but knew that she had that connection with kids. And so for Ms. Gray and for Ms. Kirkland, they were the first people to see our kids in the morning and the last people to see our kids in the afternoon. And again, I can appreciate, I see Kathy sitting back outside now under her umbrella and she'll in retirement. But we will miss seeing your faces too, as you pulled up in the morning and drove off in the afternoons. And so then our next few retirees are kind of a dynamic duo, even though they were in different departments. I had the opportunity to work with Margot, of course, when I was the principal at St. Clair Walker. And there were times when I reached out to, ask for something extra. Could we provide this, or could we do something for staff? And she never told me no. And not only did she never tell me no, she would actually add some special touches to something. So if I asked for waters for the teacher for an afternoon that we were doing something, no, the waters were coming in a pool and this was dressed up, and she just made it fun. So she made it fun for our kids and she made it fun for our staff. And that was at all 3 of our buildings that she was in and out of. And so I know she's excited to move on to more camping trips and cruises. But I also know that she deserves that and she's ready for that. And so the other part of that duo, I'm going to get something off my screen here, is her, sorry, I've got some technical issues. Okay, her husband, Richard. And of course, again, Richard and I worked together when we were at St. Clair Walker. And the funny joke was, when I hired new teachers, I would say, when you put in a maintenance request and Richard tells you he cannot do it, just come to me. And so he and I would laugh and joke, and I would say, Richard, I need you to do this. Need you to move this smart board, need you to move that, need you to change this lock. I know, Tracy, I'm on it right now and I'm going to get that done. And he really did. Again, anything I asked him to do, he did. He greeted me every day after he had checked the building, checked on us. Did we need anything? So again, I know I will miss seeing his smiling face because he was always smiling when I saw him, but he's ready to move on to those camping trips and those cruises with Margot also. So I feel it's a little bit bittersweet. I don't think we've had retirees since I've been in this position that I've had the opportunity to work with all of them. And in this case, I have. So I sit here to wish you all the best in everything that you've got planned for your future. And that may be absolutely nothing right now, which makes me very, very jealous. But please don't be strangers. Please don't leave us. You're here. All are a part of our community, and we still want to hear what's going on in your lives. So I thank all of you.
Round of applause. Yes, we will miss them all. And our students will miss them all because they have been such influences in their lives, for sure.
No question. And thank you, Dr. Seitz, for sharing those thoughts. And I couldn't help but I feel like I've heard before that when Tracy and Jeannie were on the treadmill at the Y as teachers, there were a lot of decisions that got made as they were trying to outdo each other. I know if we went around the virtual room here, there would be probably countless stories that we could hear. And I wish we were in a position to do that like we typically are. But congratulations again. Thank you so much for all you've done. And again, it's been a privilege to work with you, and we wish you the best. So our next group of recognitions, each year we choose school level as well as a division level teacher of the year. And we have those school level teachers of the year with us today. The Teacher of the Year program, as you know, there's a process that each school goes through to identify those teachers. And this is where we recognize not just exceptional teaching, not just exceptional instruction, but these are folks who inspire students of all backgrounds, of all abilities, to learn and to be engaged in not just classroom instruction, but just in the life of learning at school and all that the school community offers our students. These folks have the respect and admiration of students, of administrators, of parents, of their colleagues. They're active in the community, and they work both in school and outside of school to foster that trust and respect among the school community members. They're poised, they're articulate, and And so it's a real privilege to honor these folks today. I've asked each principal to say a couple of words about their school level Teacher of the Year. And so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Daniel, who's going to recognize the Middlesex Elementary School Teacher of the Year.
Miss Gilly looked like she might have been a little nervous by that, turning it over to me. But if you ever Miss Gilly's classroom, the first thing she says is, "Come on in, friend." Everybody's a friend in her classroom and everybody always has a seat. She started her career in 1981 and she joined Middlesex Elementary School in 2011 and has been with us since. She has some of our most precious children in the building. She works with our early childhood special education students, and she does a fabulous job getting them into the routine, getting them used to being in a school building and traveling throughout the building and how to interact with one another, how to problem solve and work through some of those social skills and those challenges that we naturally come across. I joke with her because we had a little one this year that she had in her class that she had trained so well. He was about 3 years old. And he told the fifth graders almost every morning going down the hall that they need to get on that blue line, and that blue line is where they stand. That Miss Gilly, which they call her just Gilly told him so. So she has done a great job welcoming those children into the building. We're very proud of you, Gilly.
And I will go ahead and recognize St. Clair Walker's Teacher of the Year, Miss Bailey Hooper. And I will say that she is a JMU graduate, which
Go Dukes.
I think that makes it extra special. She began her career as a third grade teacher at MES, and I was fortunate that I was able to work with her there. And once I found out that she had her Algebra 1 endorsement and I was moving on to the middle school, I thought, what would that look like having her at the middle school level? And we talked, and she was very excited to come on board. And her elementary school background brings such a great experience and for our middle school students. She has brought small group instruction into our math classes, manipulatives, and it's just amazing her leadership that she's taken on. Last year, she completed the math specialist program at VCU, so that also adds expertise to our school. And Bailey is also our Builders Club sponsor, and she takes on that and gets our kids active in the community. So we are very fortunate to have Bailey at St. Clair Walker, and we congratulate her on being St. Clair Walker's 2020 Teacher of the Year.
And our Teacher of the Year is Brinley Lowe. Brinley is a Middlesex High School graduate, and she left Middlesex to go teach art in South Carolina for about 10 years and then decided to come back home. And as soon as she walked in the office and started talking, I knew that we had an amazing teacher here in our building. She has pushed our art program to places that I've never seen it at Middlesex High School. She really challenges kids. She builds them up. She gives them amazing advice. She's not only a great teacher, but she really loves and cares for these kids. She partners with Love for Kids all the time to make sure that she's a link between them and our kids at the high school when they need things, and she's silent about it. She doesn't do things to get pats on the back. She does it because of the love in her heart for our children. And this year she took on the prom sponsorship. She had done in the past 2 years, but this year all by herself. And that's an amazing job for someone to do, especially alone. And she gets these kids motivated to do great ideas and plans and fundraising. She's tireless. I never see her energy zapped. I don't know where we'd be without her in our fine arts program in our school. She is an amazing member of our family, and we love you, Brinley. Congratulations.
Well, thanks so much to all three principals for those introductions, and congratulations to all three of you, three exceptional educators. When I think about those criteria of inspiring students and being active in the community and engaging the community in the life of the schools, respect and admiration among other educators. These three definitely exemplify those qualities. So we have a very exciting and creative way that we are going to announce the Division Teacher of the Year. We're not going to do it here in this board meeting, but I do invite everybody to stay tuned for how we're going to do that and in the next couple of days. And that's really all I'm going to say about that right now. Thank you so much, everybody, for being a part of this. Thanks to our retirees. Thanks to the Teachers of the Year. I know that was a lot. In terms of the typical recognition section of the board meeting, but an appropriate way under the circumstances for us to express our gratitude and appreciation to all of you. So thank you.
Thank you all for all of your dedication to our students and to your colleagues and to your parents that you have worked with over the years. We really appreciate it. To our retirees and our Teachers of the Year. And to everybody really I see on my screen from every aspect of our system. You all are outstanding contributors to Middlesex County Public Schools. All right, I think we are at additions and corrections to the agenda. I think Ms. Murray sent out the added financials. Is that correct? Trying to find Ms. Murray on the screen to look at her. Yeah, she is. There she is. All right. And I think board members, it is in your, you can probably find it on your phone or in your email. Ms. Murray, do you have anything you want to say about that financial?
No, ma'am. It's just your standard monthly financial, no changes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And I believe that's the only correction. Ms. Jordan, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
That's the only thing I have.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the additions to the agenda?
So move.
I'll take one of those as a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All right. Public announcements. July the 6th is the Independence Day holiday. School division closed. July the 13th is the next school board electronic meeting at 11 a.m. And July the 25th is MHS graduation. But they had a wonderful day on Saturday getting all of their signs and diplomas and what have you, whatever all these goodies were you all took to them. So is the graduation still on? Or what are we doing there? Do we know?
Yeah, I'll certainly invite Mrs. Fleet to comment as well. We've put together this plan, not knowing, of course, what the governor's phased approach is going to be. I'm hoping that tomorrow we'll get more information about that. But right now, our plan is to pursue a graduation on campus to the extent that we're able, given those parameters. We do have some backup plans. Anything you want to add to that, Mrs. Fleet?
Well, we've got lots of plans for July 25th. I've planned it one at a time. If things aren't lifted a little bit based on what the governor says tomorrow, if he does lift things for education and potentially goes up to 50, then we can accommodate 4 graduates at a time. They would each get 10 people to come in with them like they usually would with a real graduation. And, we can make it really special and individual for them in that shorter amount of time for 4 graduates at a time throughout the day. I think it might be kind of nice, even though it's very different, that we could make it a little bit more special individual to say things about each graduate as they walk up to get their diploma and turn their tassel when Dr. Gretz pronounced them graduates. So, when I went to the houses this weekend and talked to the students and the parents, we assured them that there will be a graduation on the 25th. We're just going to work out the details about whether it's be 1 at a time or 4 at a time or whatever we can do. But we're excited about it.
Okay. All right. At this time, I will open the meeting for public comment. Steve, do you have anybody in the waiting room?
There's no one in the waiting room and there are no comments on the YouTube feed.
Okay, thank you. I will close public comment then. Board members, do we have reports? Mr. Goforth, anything from Bridging?
We have a Zoom meeting this afternoon at 2:30. We will be accepting the nomination of a new director for the center. Also, board members, I'd like to announce that Peter was selected by the other superintendents to be the superintendent in charge for Bridging Communities this year. So.
Dr. Shores, anything from the?
Peter gave a talk an hour ago. You want me to give another talk?
Dr. Shores, anything from Governor's School?
Is that me?
Yes, that's you. Is there anything from Governor's School, Dr. Shores, you want to let us know about?
Yeah, I told you I gave it about an hour ago.
I know, but we're in the public meeting, so you need to do it now.
We had two teachers to resign from the governor's school. One position has been filled, and we have another person that has applied, but they have some academic work to do at the community college.
Okay. All right, good. Mr. Reed, anything?
No, I have nothing.
All right, Mr. Harrow, anything? WHRO?
We have a Zoom meeting soon. I'll report as it comes through.
Okay, all right.
Chairman, Madam Chairman, I'm sorry, I have one more thing about Bridging Communities that I'd like to add.
Yes, sir. Okay.
We are in the process of advertising for the program that we did away with for AC and DC. We have 13 students signed up, so if we can find a teacher, we're going to start that program again. We will be doing a revised budget this afternoon, though. That will probably not include that until we can find a teacher that we can hire.
Okay. The regional SPED meeting won't be until August, so I'll be reporting on that then. I did speak with the Rotary, Dr. Gretz. I collared him, had him come. We did a Zoom meeting with Rotary and talked about the role of the school board, and then they had some questions that required a little more specificity. So I had Dr. Gretz answer some of those things about how we were managing during the coronavirus. So that occurred, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, maybe. And but it was good to talk to the community and give them some sense of the role of the school board. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
All right, I'll take one as a move and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye, all right.
Aye.
Dr. Gretz, we have some policy issues here that we need to talk about.
We do. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the first item is on page 11 of your packet. And each year we're asked to renew our agreement with the Virginia School Board Association. They provide policy services. They have an attorney on staff, Elizabeth Ewing, and some others who move through these policies and try to coordinate the state and federal implications into recommendations. And so this is the updated agreement that we typically do each year, and I recommend that you approve this agreement again for the upcoming school year.
All right, is there a motion to approve the agreement with the Virginia School Boards Association?
So moved.
So moved.
Are there any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All right, none opposed. All right, Dr. Gretz?
Thank you. The next item is on page 17 of your packet. And this is an agreement that we process each year, where essentially you need to pass a resolution that says that the board will reimburse itself using these grant funds that come through the VPSA. These are for capital purchases, technology purchases. It's pretty straightforward. Again, it's something the board does each year. And this is just the process that you need to use in order to access those funds when and if those expenditures happen. You can
All
see a
right.
copy of the resolution in your packet.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve the VIPSA FY21 reimbursement resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All right, Dr. Shores, thank you. Any questions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, none opposed.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, our school board policy revisions on second reading.
So these are
First
policies that, again, you've seen these on first reading. There's nothing in here that I would point out. Certainly nothing's changed since you first reviewed them. I recommend that you pass them, but if you have any questions about any of them or discussion, we'll certainly entertain those.
Other, any questions on the policy revisions that we approved on first reading? If not, is there a motion to approve school board policy revisions on second reading A through Q? Let
So
me read.
moved.
All right. Any question? Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions about these? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Dr. Gretz, we have a group on second reading.
Lots on first reading, lots of
I'm
policies
sorry,
on first
thank you.
reading.
First reading, yes.
Yes, you can see these. These start on page 51 of your packet, and I know you've reviewed them already. There's really nothing in here that is that changes anything we're doing dramatically. There's some sections in here regarding the grievance process and some of the professional staff policies that, again, they don't really change things. Most of them are pretty straightforward responses, but if there's anything specific you want to discuss.
The policy GB, which is on page 131, talks about a compliance officer and an alternate compliance officer. I don't know who our compliance officer is.
We have those designated. That's something we have in our current policy already.
Okay, so we have you or Dr. Seitz or principals or whomever as the compliance officer.
We do, yeah.
Okay. One other question, and I don't know if that's in, this is my fault. I can't remember where this is. Oh, yes, it is. It's on GB 131. On page, yeah, it remains there. There's a question about, no, that's the wrong one. I'm sorry. So when I watched this, the SIT webinar on Friday, and in here it talks about competency, and they have removed that from the policy about how to terminate a contract, but they have removed the definition of competency. And the suggestion was that maybe we needed to adopt our own policy of competency. We could probably use the one that they have currently, but they've now removed. It's just something to think about. I know it's in here, they've taken it out. I don't know if that's something we want to do. I'm just looking for discussion and advice. And we don't have to vote on it today. We can, talk about it and determine that, but that was one of the suggestions from the webinar on Friday.
Yeah, and if-
Oh, it's GCPD. That's what it is. It's policy GCPD.
Yeah, and that as you're considering that language was added, I think about 5 years ago, and it was really designed to streamline those processes that were in place with regards specifically to tenured contracts, continuing contracts. I think there's been an ongoing conversation between the Virginia Education Association and the Virginia School Board Association, as well as VAS, the Superintendent's Association, about that language. And my recommendation would be to stick with what was originally proposed, which really ties the definition of competency to your evaluation protocol. So competency is really reflected in the case of a teacher, it would be the principal's assessment using those protocol of the criteria that are in the protocol. If the board would want to put together a separate definition, I certainly am not opposed to that. The difficulty of taking it away from your criteria in your evaluation process is you just have to be very careful to keep it objective and to put the evaluator in, or I guess to not put the evaluator in a place where they would struggle with objectivity using that definition, if that makes sense. I would want us to work with Brad King on that. But that's just my response.
Well, I'm not sure why they took it out. It's currently in there. They've taken it out on this new policy. But the recommendation was from the webinar to establish our own policy, but use the same definition that's been in there.
Yeah, I think just to put a fine point on it, I think that language made it a much less cumbersome bureaucratic process to terminate a continuing contract.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the Education Association has been fighting against that for quite some time for that reason.
All right. There's a policy about everyone completing mental health training. How do we go about doing that?
Yeah, we're working on that. I think it's embedded in our staff development, and kind of like equity, it becomes an underlying theme.
I wasn't quite sure if it implies that there's to be a separate professional development time, or how that was to be done, but
I think that's left up to the localities, and
Okay.
it's something that is really, it continues to be a part of the discussion of reopening schools, not just because that being a major factor probably in taking care of kids when we reopen school, and making sure that we're positioned to do that well.
All right. Is there a motion to approve school board policy revisions A through T on first reading?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions? All right. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? All right. Those policies are passed on first reading. Information items, Dr. Gretz, school lunch prices and school fees.
Thank you. Board members, on page 183 of your packet, you'll see the 2020-21 school lunch prices and school fees.
183.
183 and 184 is where you'll actually find the lunch and breakfast prices, and it's helpful to see how they have changed or not changed from year to year. So we have a 3-year trend provided in here. Student breakfast remains the same next year. Student lunch goes up by 10 cents next year. The reduced price for breakfast and lunch remain the same for next year. And then obviously the free is free. At the middle and high school, the secondary level, student breakfast stays the same. And again, student lunch goes up by 10 cents. And then the reduced stays the same as it does with the elementary. And the adult price for breakfast stays the same. And the adult lunch price goes up by 50 cents. There's a note at the bottom that may be helpful for you to take a look at. And Mrs. Murray can probably chime in. It can be difficult to explain, but these are not prices that Middlesex County, we don't get together and just decide what our lunches are going to cost. This is something that we have to participate in, and we have to adopt the rate changes as they're given to us if we participate in the National School Lunch Program, which we do and have to. But any questions about these?
No, sir. All right. Update of school opening.
So everybody, when we first planned to do this, I was very hopeful that we would have had the benefit of hearing the governor's plan. Obviously, that's going to have a tremendous impact on our plan to reopen schools. But I thought I could just take a few minutes and at least give everybody a very high-level overview of the way we have positioned ourselves to be best prepared to open school next year. Essentially, one of the biggest challenges that we've had, there are really 3 scenarios that we're trying to plan around. One would be a traditional opening. We certainly know how to do that, but with social distancing requirements that are likely to be in place August 24th, buses and classrooms and in large gathering spaces, there'll be implications there that we're going to have to work around and figure out. The second would be a virtual opening, kind of like we ended the year. The difference between the way we spent the spring and the way we would open school next year would be, of course, that there would have to be new learning introduced, and there would have to be the accountability for new learning. So it would be for credit, and there would be grades assigned, and there would be assessments, and it wouldn't be optional participation. So there would be the compulsory attendance requirement associated in a virtual learning opportunity. And then the third would be a blend of the two. So the thing that we have been doing most here in the recent couple of weeks is to make sure that we're preparing our teachers to do that, to do online virtual instruction, new learning, and assessment of that learning in a virtual environment. The real challenges that we've had, the first has been, of course, that we still have a good majority, well, not a majority, but we have about a third of our students who don't have access to broadband for one reason or another. And so the way that we've tried to address that is through hotspots, through Verizon, mobile Verizon hotspots, as well as, and Steve Dunkel is on here, and he can give a little extra explanation if you'd like it. But we're able to get Chromebooks using our CARES Act funds that are LTE enabled. Steve will have to tell you what LTE is, but I do know that it just means that they can serve as their own hotspots. That's the way I explain it to myself. And the good thing about that over a Verizon hotspot is that we have more control over what's being done on the Chromebook, what it's being used for. If we give a student a hotspot, the reality is anybody in the family can use that hotspot for anything. And it can be used to play Xbox. They're all they can stream movies and use up the data. Whereas on the Chromebook, we have essentially the same controls over what's done on the Chromebook with that hotspot as we would if they were in one of our classrooms. So we think that we can get I would say almost our entire student population connected through that initiative. So they'll have the ability to be connected. There may be a couple of isolated circumstances where there isn't cell service that's good enough for the LTE work. We're still working through that. It's been a challenge to get. We've done multiple surveys as well as through our teachers in the capstone projects, just trying to connect with families to see who actually does and doesn't have access, who isn't accessing because they can't afford it, who isn't accessing because regardless of whether it's affordable, it just simply is not available there. And that's really what we're getting hold of. Steve, is there anything you'd want to add to any of that regarding connectivity before I move on to the next point?
No, we have some options. I've been kind of waiting for tomorrow's announcements to make final purchasing decisions, but we're still doing quite a few diagnostic tests for expanded coverage for wireless, and they have some direct radio communications that we can use for those small percentage of our students. But we'll be poised and ready to go when we have a full direction from the state and from the governor.
Thank you. Okay, so that's the connectivity barrier that we think we've solved, or at least solved to the best degree that we possibly can. The next barrier has been the absence of a learning management system. So when we talk about a learning management system, it's essentially, if anybody's taken a graduate course here recently in college, they would have used something like Blackboard or Canvas, or there's a number of them. But it's basically a uniform, standardized online platform that enables all the communication, all the assignments, all the distribution of grades, all of those things to happen in a standardized format that houses all of that material and delivers all of that material. It's a common login and a common shared experience. We've K-12 school systems have been moving towards those learning management systems for quite some time, probably 10 years or more, with increasing effect in the most recent years. We've considered it every year that I've been here. The reason we haven't purchased one is because of the connectivity issue. It hasn't been wise to do it until we had everybody connected. With everybody being connected, it puts us in a position to adopt a learning management system. The other challenge is that they can be expensive in an initial implementation as well as an ongoing subscription throughout the years. So I'll hold that one and move on to the third, which is probably one of the most significant, and that is making sure that all teachers are familiar and ready to operate in an online environment. Delivering online instruction is very, very different from doing it face-to-face. It's not just more difficult, it's just different. And so there's the need for us to have a common understanding of what tools are available, a common understanding of how to deliver content online, to have that content to be delivered, because it's a mix of software and a mix of video capabilities, as well as just engaging students the way we're engaging each other right now in this meeting. And so there's a lot of training that's involved in that. The development of the content, as well as training staff members, and that's an ongoing process. So I think those last two really kind of go hand in hand. The need for a uniform learning management system, and then the need for common virtual online content and the tools to deliver that content, and the training to make sure that all the teachers are available. So those are really the three things that we've been tackling. The way we solve those last two is through a partnership with Virtual Virginia. Virtual Virginia has been around for a while, and they have, similar to our agreement with WHRO, where we have access to a variety of online courses. Virtual Virginia, we've had access to a variety of online courses, and we've used some of them, typically use it at the high school level. With the school shutdown and the pandemic, Virtual Virginia partnered with a learning management system called Canvas and expanded its coursework, not to every single content area, but to the majority of them, certainly the majority of academic courses, and grade levels so that school divisions at no extra cost could partner with Virtual Virginia to receive Canvas, the learning management system, as well as the content and staff development through Virtual Virginia. Dr. Seitz, as soon as they opened the window to say who's interested in this, she was, if you see these people that are waiting on concert tickets, sometimes they spend all night sleeping in front of the place. She was right at the door of Virtual Virginia, and I think got us in the top 10. And so we were very fortunate to come on board with them. We had several meetings with our leadership. We've had a meeting with all of our teachers to begin that process of acclimating them to Virtual Virginia so that we can be better positioned to deliver online instruction. Now, what are we going to do with that? I really can't say what we're going to do with it until we hear from the governor tomorrow. I think we need to be prepared, and this is just Pete Gretz, so please, hear it that way. This is just my assessment. I don't think, I'm not hopeful that we're going to be able to open traditionally with no considerations for social distancing or anything else on August 24th. So we're really not planning for that. We're planning for what's more likely is either to have to open in a virtual setting using these tools, or to have to open in a staggered position where, because of social distancing, so for example, the 55 passenger bus, trying to keep students 6 feet apart on a 55 passenger bus, we've got 10 to 12 students on that bus. In a typical classroom that's 25 by 25 or 30 by 30, if we're keeping students 6 feet apart, we have maybe 14 people in a classroom, 12 to 14. We don't know what to plan for yet, but we do know that we probably have to plan for those things. And if we're planning for those, if that's the way we're going to open in August, we know we're not going to be able to have every student in the building at one time. And so if the governor's plan allows us to prioritize students with special needs, students in the primary grades, students who are English language learners who need more direct instruction, we would prioritize those and figure out how to comply with the social distancing requirements and stagger the schedule so that we can have those students on site first. You can imagine trying to introduce a 4-year-old to school, much less to do the skill work that those students are working on through an iPad is virtually, pardon the pun, impossible. So we're hopeful that we'll have the flexibility to do that. But again, we really don't know. But we do know that we're probably going to have to employ some of this virtual instruction in a way that we'll have some people on site and some people doing virtual instruction. And the other thing that we have to be prepared for is the possibility of intermittent school closures next year. Without knowing when or how long, it's very difficult to plan on that. But we believe that the training and the partnership that we've begun with Virtual Virginia will put us in a position to be able to do that, to be able to respond and deliver online instruction with a moment's notice if we need to do that, and to do it with different populations. Before I go on and say any more, Dr. Seitz, you've really been leading that implementation with our staff. Is there anything you wanted to add about Virtual Virginia or the training or what's coming up in the next few days regarding that?
Yeah, I would just add that all of our teachers who are currently with us and returning, and then all of our new teachers that we've brought on board, started a full-week workshop last week with Virtual Virginia. They spent about 5 hours a week in a training program to help them learn how to navigate the courses and learn how to navigate Canvas, which, as Dr. Gretz said, is the learning management system. And then our teachers who will be teaching in the summer program will be able to take advantage of that and be the first ones to practice using it when they start in July.
Yeah, thank you. That's important. So they have begun that. And we do have some teachers, specifically our fine arts, exploratory, the teachers who aren't in traditional core academic areas. Virtual Virginia is going to have preloaded content that our teachers can use. We're not requiring them to use it. We want them to be prepared to use it. And we think the best And the training is really going to center on getting our teachers to where they can take that preloaded virtual Virginia content and modify it and make it their own. And so they'd use pieces of that and they'd add pieces of their own. We have teachers who may want to create from the ground up their own content and use that. We just want them to be prepared. The analogy that I've used is Canvas, the learning management system, is kind of like the vehicle, the car, and Virtual Virginia is really the preloaded radio stations that they can hit a button and get there if they want to, or they can come up with their own. That's not a perfect analogy, but all of our teachers are going to benefit from, and all of our students and parents, frankly, will benefit from Canvas, the learning management system. That's something we're going to be able to use and carry forward whether or not we're in a pandemic. It gives our parents a more readily accessible way to get into the classroom assignments and grades and to see what's going on and to communicate with their teachers. So all of our teachers are going to be able to use that, and frankly, are going to have to use it. The fine arts teachers they're going to have to create their own content. Now, there is some accessible content out there that can be migrated and integrated into Virtual Virginia and Canvas. So the stuff that they've been doing this year is they can migrate that right in. There are resources out there that we may be able to purchase for them using CARES Act funds that they can put in Canvas. So there is a little bit of an extra burden on those teachers because their Virtual Virginia isn't just going to hand them a music course, for example. But we're putting together some opportunities for them to work together here, as well as, like I said, there's some external resources that we're going to get. And again, all this, just backing up to the big picture, all of this is just so that we are prepared to deliver online instruction, to engage kids in an online setting, so that our teachers have those skills and we're able to respond to whatever Virginia does, whether that's we have to open the year virtually, or we have to open the year with some students virtual and others not virtual, or we start the year and then in December have to back off and go back home, that we'll have these tools. The other added benefit to this, as you know, through our partnership with WHRO, and Mr. Harrow has been very interested in our expanding our use of those online courses. This is going to make sure that our teachers get the training and the exposure to delivering online courses. And I think it will improve. This is just an added benefit. I think it'll really improve our ability to use those resources that we have to offer students, again, when we're not shut down and we're not trying to just deliver the course schedules virtually, but we may be able to offer students expanded opportunities like we did last year with physics, through some of these other partnerships that we have, WHRO being the primary one. So I've said a lot about that. The other things that we are preparing to contend with, but again, until we hear from the governor, we just don't know exactly what to prepare for. But we do believe that we're going to have some responsibilities around health screenings. Don't know what they'll be. I don't know if it'll be temperature checks or if it'll be some other form. But I've been talking with our school nurses, and we're going to be coordinating with the Three Rivers Health District. We've already partnered through a grant with the Rotary to go ahead and purchase some of those thermometers, so that we'll be ready for that if we need to. We're not actually going to buy them until we hear from the governor, but I think we're ready to have the equipment. Now, there's some unbelievable challenges around that, as you can imagine. If the requirement is to monitor temperatures, and then they'll be associated, if you've seen the CDC's recommendations, and if those are incorporated into what Virginia says, then we will be required to do those screenings. And there'll be some pretty strict requirements on what happens when you do have a fever that's present at school. A separate quarantine space that has ventilation and among other things. Well, you know as well as I do, if you've been in a school, at the elementary school in particular, probably all of them, we're going to have fevers. We have fevers every year at the elementary school, lots of them. And they're not going to be necessarily related to COVID. We're going to have strep throat and the flu and every other thing that comes through those classrooms, and those kids are going to present with fevers. So I think it's going to be very difficult for us to figure out how to comply with the requirements and yet incorporate the common sense that we need to keep things fluid for students. But that's what we're working on, is how to do those things in a way that is least disruptive as possible and that makes sense, frankly. The other is going to be disinfecting our schools. Laser Clean has done a phenomenal job cleaning our schools. Phenomenal. They've used state-of-the-art equipment, state-of-the-art chemicals. John Hill is coming to me every other day with an article that he's gotten in a partnership through some firm to use a different cleaning agent that has an even quicker kill time as far as bacteria and just they've really done a wonderful job. Our schools are disinfected and clean. I think they're probably the cleanest buildings in the Commonwealth right now. But we've got to figure out how to best keep that the case when there's students in there. And so there could be intermittent cleaning that happens throughout the day or maybe every other day, again, until we know what population of students. If we just have primary grades that are able to come, then we know how to schedule that. If we have just students with disabilities, if the requirement is, as it is now, for 50 or fewer, we're trying to position ourselves to respond to whatever situation comes, realizing there are any number of scenarios out there that we could be dealing with.
What about our buses, keeping them clean?
Yeah, same thing with the buses. We've talked to Laser Clean about that as well. You know, what we've done traditionally with our buses, and Greg Harrow and I were talking about this on Friday, we use a Clorox solution and wipe them down every day. Wipe the seats down, wipe the space in front of the seats down. That we think that's probably the best way to do this. We haven't seen anything that has come out. The only thing that we've seen is there's a misting formula that's being marketed to school divisions right now that essentially does the same thing. It just takes less time. They're expensive, and we'd have to really prioritize our use of CARES funds if we wanted to go that route. But that will, I'm glad you brought that out. That will definitely be a part of our routine when we come back. What other questions do you have as far as reopening schools? I mean, we've spent so much time considering these things and figuring out, you know, right now we're really in a defensive posture because we don't know exactly what the plan will be.
So I had a thought about networking. Can our teachers network with other teachers that they've met through classes or that the principals know of who maybe spent some time this spring creating classes for online delivery? Maybe people would be willing to share. I don't know, but you know, I told you about the conversation I had with the fourth grade teacher from Williamsburg, James City, and some of the programs that she had developed herself. And so I just thought, you know, if that kind of networking could go on, that would be a big help, I would think.
Sure. Yeah, that absolutely, it's available. And there's some organizations that are trying to corral that, for lack of a better term. Virginia Association of Curriculum Development is trying to create some opportunities for teachers to come together that way. Virtual Virginia actually incorporates into what it's training the use of what's called Go Open Virginia, which takes a lot of these resources and makes them available to everybody. We've already been tapping into that to a certain degree. So I'll tell you also, our teachers have been doing this spring. Our teachers have been creating new content, and some of that will be rolled in. We've got varied levels of comfort with it. And, you know, I think I'd invite our principals to comment here if you'd like to, assistant principals. I think one of the biggest challenges to online learning is leveraging the relationships and building the relationships with students that foster engagement. That's really at the heart of student engagement, is the relationship. And it's trying to find ways to keep this medium that we have right now that we're using from being a barrier, because it really can feel like one. It can feel like there's distance and that there's just a barrier between you and the person you're communicating with this way. And I think that's one of the most difficult ways, difficult things to get around, is making sure that that we're able to do that.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's a great point. Any other questions or comments for us? Principals, anything you'd want to add to what I've shared about our planning, or Dr. Seitz, anybody?
Dr. Gretz was just sitting here thinking, and was that it really right here off of 602. And I was thinking
Elliot, you're breaking up. I can't get what you're saying. You're breaking up.
Is it any better now?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
No better. Is it any better?
Yes.
The area off to the side of my house, and the internet actually, as far as cable or anything, stops from where 602 meets 17, just beyond my house. And if there are any students who are up the county or right around in this area who are having a problem and they have a computer that is able to go wireless, I would allow them to actually park right here beside my house and go online. But that would help, anything up this way.
Well, thank you, Mr. Reed. We'll definitely, I know Steve is on here and he's hearing that. We'll definitely incorporate that into the plans. Thank you for that.
Okay.
So that's my best update for you at this time. Unfortunately, can't give you anything more solid than that, but I do think that we're preparing our teachers to the best degree possible to be well-versed and just ready and equipped to deliver online instruction in the case that we need to.
So how specific do you think the governor is going to be tomorrow? I mean, is it going to be some sort of general and then fill in the blanks, or is it going to be specific?
No, I think just from the conversations that we've had as superintendents with the DOE and with Dr. Lane, I think it's going to be pretty specific. I think we're going to know the social distancing requirements. I think we're going to know potentially certain populations of students that we have the flexibility to bring on campus and others that we don't.
Okay.
And I think we'll know how the large meeting spaces will be permissible to be used in the different phases. What I'm not sure about is the degree to which we'll know exactly when this phase starts and that phase starts, and that some of that may remain to be seen. So I don't know if the announcement tomorrow is going to usher in a certain phase, but I do know that it's going to be a phased approach. It's likely to be aligned to the one for businesses in terms of its spacing. And then I think we're going to get some specific information about those parameters I mentioned.
All right, anybody else have any questions on this? Okay, instructional updates, Dr. Seitz?
Yes, ma'am. So I think we're all excited that we have successfully ended the 1920 school year. It may have looked a little different for all of us, but thanks to a fabulous instructional administrative team who sat through many meetings with us and planning and making changes and accommodating where needed. And then of course, what our teachers did when they left the classroom on March 13th having no idea that they would not return to the classroom again. Same thing with our students. So lots we overcame, lots we learned. We're getting feedback from teachers on what worked well and what we can improve on, how we can make this better. I had a conversation even Friday afternoon with a teacher after he finished his last class on some things to change it up if we've got to move to a virtual opening for part of the year anyway. So, but this year has finished and report cards will be mailed out by the end of this week to all of our families with lots of information in that. Our summer planning, you all approved the teachers for that in closed session. That starts July 7th through the 31st. And that will be new for us this year, as that will also be in a virtual setting. And I mentioned that those teachers will take advantage of what they've learned with Virtual Virginia to use for the summer learning that they're putting into place. And that will help us, I think, also as if we have to start the new year that way, that we've got some of our teachers that have gotten a little bit of that experience under their belt and to aid with that. Dr. Gretz mentioned Go Open Virginia, which is an open educational resources site that all of our teachers can take advantage of, where there are plans and assessments on it. We've got some teachers that'll be putting some more work into that this summer. In our partnership with Pocosin and West Point, we applied for an OER, Open Educational Resources, mini grant through VDOE and received $10,000 to bring teachers together to collaborate in whatever area we wanted to focus on. And we chose to, this was before everything shut down, but the way we wrote our grant was for writing instruction and writing assessments. Remembering that the 5th grade SOL assessment is no longer in place for 5th grade, the traditional assessment, but it's a performance-based assessment. And then the students have that again in 8th grade and then end of course in 11th grade. We felt like that was some area we still needed to develop. So we have identified teachers in all 3 of our school divisions that we will be bringing together virtually to work on those types of assessments as we move forward. And so we start that work this summer and into the fall. So that's where we have finished and what we're looking at right this minute for the summer anyway.
And I take it summer is remediation from the past 2.5 months, or?
We've at the elementary school, there's the staff identified students that they felt, we all know that all of our students will have suffered some loss when we start the new year. Some students we identified, if we had the opportunity during the summer to give them that extra boost, that would help, or that would be more of what they needed to start the year. So just over 100 students at the elementary school were identified. We've identified about 60 students at the middle school that have been invited to take advantage of this summer learning opportunity.
Okay, thank you. All right, the floor is now open. The meeting is now open for public comment. Steve, do you have anything online there?
I don't have any comments in the chat or on the YouTube feed or on Facebook.
Okay. All right, I will close public comment. Dr. Gretz, do you have anything else you'd like to fill us in on?
Only thing I'll share, and I'll invite Mrs. Fleet, although she didn't know I was going to do this, but we had, you remember the students who came from Bridging Communities Culinary, and they had designed a recipe to be potentially used in space, and they served it at our joint Board of Supervisors and school board meeting. So that competition is finalized, and they actually got 3rd place overall in this national competition. And so we're thrilled for them. They each get a $20,000 scholarship towards additional education in culinary.
It's remarkable.
And yeah, it's amazing. The 1st place was full ride, but I don't know if there's anything, Susan, you want to say about them, but just they've done a phenomenal job. We're very proud of them.
Yeah, and they're still working with Chef Marquise over at Bridging. They did a pandemic pantry, and the chef sent out an email to some of the leaders in the schools who send kids to Bridging, and he had limited spots for meals to be prepared for us. And I jumped on like I was the first one. I said I want in on that. So Marissa Halbig was actually on one of the teams who reached out to me to find out likes and dislikes and all that good stuff. And then she and her team built a menu for me and my family. It's a 5-course meal. And they came up with the recipes, ran it all by me, and Chef is making it by himself in the Bridging kitchen, but they worked collaboratively in their little groups to create the whole menu. It was actually done on a gorgeous menu card that was sent to me by email. It's coming at 2:00 today, so we can eat it tonight at my house. I am super excited, but these kids are amazing. They are still being creative and working together and cranking out all kinds of great stuff.
Are they seniors or what year?
So Marissa and Will Holt are on the team of 3 with a girl from West Point. They are seniors. We have other students who are juniors who are still participating with the pandemic pantry too.
Well, anything else, Dr. Gretz, for the good of the group?
No, ma'am.
All right. Is there any old business to come before the group? Any new business? Awfully quiet. All right, so I guess I need a motion to adjourn the meeting. I can't even get one of those.
So
What is
moved.
wrong with you people? Thank you. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, everybody.